Hey, how's it going, Algebra 2 kids? Mr. Young here. Welcome to virtual learning, I guess is what we're calling this. This is our first kind of try at this. It's new for me, it's new for you guys, so we're going to kind of learn how to do this stuff together. Let me know. Our quote of the day, which you saw at the start, was Rafiki from Lion King, and I don't remember the exact quote, but he's basically saying you can either learn from the past or you can forget about it, I think. Whatever it is. Comment in the comments for the Google Classroom post what you think that means. That'll be an interesting way to start the conversation. Here's how virtual learning is going to work. You guys are going to watch this video. You're probably already watching it. Otherwise, you won't get this, so it won't matter. But you're going to watch the video. I will remind you how to do some math. This first lesson is going to be all review, just so we can get the hang of the virtual learning part. After you're done watching the video, you'll have some practice problems to do. For this first one, it's going to be the problems in your little packet, which you should already have done. But if not, you should work on those. And then I will also post all the whiteboard problems we did on Google Classroom, so you'll have a bunch of them you can do there. You can get all the practice you need until you think you got the hang of it. When you do, email me, and I will send you my answer key. You can check your answers, and then when you're done, I will give you a short little quiz. I'm calling them comprehension checks. But that is the only thing that your grade is going to be based on for the time that we're doing virtual learning. So it's super important that you do those, and it's super important that you know how to do them before I give it to you, okay? Today we're going to review adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing rational functions. Before we get to that, though, a couple other things. I should have wrote these down so I didn't forget. There are like 10 of you that are still not in Google Classroom. So email your friends or text your friends that are in the class and tell them if they're not in Google Classroom, they have to get in there because it's the only way they're going to get this stuff. And if they're not in there, they're going to flunk the class. And I don't want that, and you don't want that, and they probably don't want it. So make sure all your friends are in Google Classroom. Okay, today we'll remind you how to simplify and multiply and add and subtract. So the real key when you're doing simplifying and multiplying are kind of the same thing, really. The real key is to remember you're going to factor everything as much as you can, and then you'll cancel a bunch of stuff out. Okay, so one tip I'm going to give you is put everything in parentheses. Like this here is one big block because they're added together, subtracted together. So if you put parentheses around all the stuff that's multiplied, I think it's going to help you get less confused maybe. And then we're going to try to factor. We'll start with the bottom actually. That x to the fourth, we can rewrite that as x times x times x times x. Or if you want, you can put all those things in parentheses because they're all getting multiplied together. Okay, and then the top has two parts, so we're going to try to factor this. We're going to look for the greatest common factor. The biggest thing that goes into both of those is x to the third, which is x times x times x. If we take x to the third out of this part, we have 6, and we have one of the x's left. And if we take x to the third out of this, all we have left is the minus 1. Okay, so now we got to factor as much as we can. We're going to cancel a bunch of stuff out. So that x can cancel one of those, that x can cancel one of those, that x can cancel one of those. This x cannot cancel this x because this is one big chunk right here. Okay, so that's as canceled out as we can get. And on the bottom all we have left is 2x. So that's our answer. And then we also have to remember our, I can't remember the word now, our values that we can't have. I'll remember it later. X can't be 0 here, right? Or excluded values, that's the word, excluded values. X can't be 0 because if x was 0, the denominator would be 0, and we can't have that. So make sure on your answers you need to list the excluded values, okay? This one's a little more complicated. It's multiplied, but it's still going to be basically the same thing. So if we look at the top here, there's two terms, so we're going to look for the greatest common factor. The one thing that both of these have in common is an x. So I'm going to take x out. If I do x squared divided by x, I get 1x. If I do 3x divided by x, I get plus 3. And since this is multiplied, I'm just going to combine this into one big one. On the bottom, I got x minus 2, and I have 4 and I have x. And then this here we can factor. We need to find two numbers that will multiply to make 6 and add to make -5. There's only a couple ways to make 6. If you try them all, you would figure out that -3 and -2 would work. Now we got it factored as much as we can. Let's see what we can cancel. Well, we got x minus 2 on the top, x minus 2 on the bottom, x on the bottom, x on the top. That's all we got. So here's what we have left. And we know that x can't be 0. And x also can't be 2, because if we put 2 in there, 2 minus 2 is 0. So x also can't be 2. This would be a great answer. An even better answer would be if we multiplied this all out, if we did FOIL. So x times x is x squared. X times -3 is -3x. 3 times x is positive 3x, so those two middle terms cancel out. And then 3 times -3 is 9. So this would be the best answer. If you made it to here on your comprehension check, that's fine. Okay, that is simplifying and multiplying. We'll do one more. We'll do a division one. One thing I noticed while I'm erasing when I was watching my Algebra 1 video is when I'm talking about math, I always say, we have. We will do one more. I don't know why I say that. I think math teachers do it a lot. But we aren't doing it. I'm doing it and you guys are watching, so it's kind of weird. Alright, here's a division one though. I don't know what made me think of that. Over y to the 7th divided by 2x to the 5th over y to the 9th. So remember with division, the only thing you have to do different is you're going to turn it into a multiplication and flip over the second one. So first thing we're going to do is rewrite this. First thing I'm going to do is rewrite this. Times, and then I'm going to flip this one over. So y to the 9th over 2x to the 5th. Okay, now we can factor it as much as we can and start canceling stuff out. I'm going to factor this 28 into 2 times 14. And then x to the 4th is x times x times x times x times y. And then, I got a y to the 9th here. I'm going to rewrite this y to the 9th as y times y times y to the 7th. If you guys are alright with that. If you're not okay with that, when you do it by yourself, write out 7 more y's. But I didn't have very much room there. And then over here I got a y to the 7th. And I got a 2. And I got x times x times x times x times x. Okay, there's lots of shortcuts for multiplying and dividing exponents. If you remember those from Algebra 1, or if you figure them out, you can do this quicker. But I'm writing it out so it makes more sense to you guys. Let's see what we can cancel. There's a 2 and a 2. There's a y to the 7th and a y to the 7th. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4 x's on the top. So those are going to cancel 1, 2, 3, 4 the x's on the bottom. And we end up with 14, 1, 2, 3, y to the 3rd over x. And we also know that x can't equal 0, because if x is 0, the bottom of this would be 0. And y can't equal 0. So there's our final answer for that one. Okay, so dividing, almost the same as multiplying. You just have that one first step where you change it to multiply and flip over just the second one. Okay, that's multiplying and dividing. Let's look at adding and subtracting. Alright, adding and subtracting. I don't know if you can, my daughter's watching Moana in there, so it's that stupid "No, I know" that song. It's annoying. Alright, adding and subtracting. Remember when you're adding and subtracting fractions or rational functions, which is, they basically are fractions. Before you can add and subtract them, you need to have a common denominator. Okay? So one way you can always find a common denominator is just multiply the top and the bottom of this one by that denominator, and then multiply the top and the bottom of this one by that denominator. That will always work. It will always give you a common denominator. But it's not usually the smallest one. You want the smallest one. So the easy way to find the smallest one is to factor the everything really, but especially the bottom, and then look at what's missing. So I can factor the 4 into 2 times 2, And then I can factor the 8 into 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, I factored the two denominators as much as I could. So if we look at these, is this one missing anything that this one has? Well, yes, it's missing one of the 2's, right? So we need to multiply the bottom of this one by 2. That means we also have to multiply the top of that one by 2 so that it equals 1, right? If we multiply by 2 over 2, it equals 1. That doesn't change the value of the whole thing. Okay? Is this one missing anything that this one has? Well, no. Now it's not, right? So now we can actually add them together. 2 times 3 is 6. So I got 6/8 plus 1/8. And now they have common denominators, so now we can just add the top. 6 plus 1 is 7, and the denominator stays the same. Okay? So I showed you an easy one with just regular numbers, so you can kind of get the hang of how it works. Same thing with rational functions. This one, though, if you look at it, they already have the same denominator. So now we can just add the tops. Well, this is a subtraction. Remember my suggestion last chapter, I think, was if you get a subtraction, change it to a plus and change the sign in front of the everything on the second one. So now it's 4x minus 8 over x minus 2. Okay, that looks good. We're not done yet, though, because we need to make sure we simplify it. We can actually factor the top of this because 4 goes into both of those. So if I take a 4 out, 4x divided by 4 is x, negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. Okay, now is there anything that the top and bottom have in common? Yep. So the final answer for this one is actually 4. And we do have the little caveat that x can't equal 2, right? Because if x is positive 2, then the bottom is equal to 0, and that's no good. There's our answer. Okay, so adding and subtracting, make sure you have the same denominator, and then you just add the tops and the denominator stays the same. Okay, let's try a couple more, slightly more difficult ones. They're a lot more difficult. I don't want to lie to you guys. While I'm writing these up there, another thing, I know you guys will get bored watching me videotape myself. So I have a couple like guest teachers lined up. So some of these videos you'll get to enjoy some special guest teachers instead of just me. And a couple of the guest teachers you might have already met at some point this year. So that'll be exciting. You'll get to see them again. So that's something to be excited about instead of just listening to Mr. Young run his mouth all day. Alright, here we go. Last two examples here. Alright, this one, remember, if we put parentheses around these, I think it's going to help us remember. Because otherwise you're going to look at this and you're going to say, well, this has an x, it's missing the negative 3. But that doesn't work. It's missing that whole thing. So we need to multiply the top and the bottom of this one by x minus 3. And then what is this side missing that this part has? Well, it's missing just the x. So we need to multiply the top and the bottom of this one by x. Okay, I think if you put parentheses around those things, it's going to help make more sense. Okay. Now they have the same denominator. Now we can add the tops. First we're going to distribute here though. So x times x is x squared plus x. And now that they have the same denominator, I'm just going to add them together. I'll distribute the 3. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. So I got, let's see, those I can add together. That's 4x minus 9. And then on the bottom, if I distribute this x, I get x squared minus 3x. Okay, so that's our answer. And then if we want to check for our excluded values, the easiest place to do that is right here where it's already factored. We know that x can't equal 0. And we also know that x minus 3 can't equal 0. So if we solve this, we would do plus 3 on each side. Okay, so that's our other excluded value right there. Okay, so when you're looking for excluded values, do it in the spot where it's already factored. It'll be a lot easier for you. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's try one more here. Boy, I don't know. These don't look like they have the same denominator. So one thing we could do is multiply the top and bottom of this one by x plus 2, and the top and bottom of this one by x squared minus 6x minus 16. That's going to get messy though. So let's see, maybe if we factor this, we can get it a little bit simpler. Okay, so if I try to factor this, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to make negative 16 and add to make negative 6. If you do a little bit of work, you'll figure out that's negative 8 and positive 2. And the clue I gave you is that, like, since this one says x plus 2, that's probably a clue that one of these two is likely going to be x plus 2. Not necessarily, but it's kind of a hint for you. Okay, now if we look at this one, are we missing anything that the bottom of this side has? No, that it has the x plus 2. On this side though, we're missing the x minus 8. So we're going to multiply the top and the bottom of this one by x minus 8. Okay, the bottom's already factored, so I'm going to write down my excluded values now. I know that x can't be negative 2 because that would make this part equal 0, and x can't be positive 8. Okay, let's combine it into one big one. If we multiply these back out, we already know it's going to be, minus 6x. Okay, if I do FOIL on this part, I get x times x is x squared minus 8x plus 5x, that'd be minus 3x minus 40. Okay, and then I can add the top. So I'm combining like terms. The only x squared is this one, but since it's subtract, I'm going to change that to a plus, and I'm going to change the sign in front of everything on the second one. Make sure you change the sign in front of the first thing. That's the one you'll probably forget. So I have negative x squared. Let's see, 1x plus 3x is plus 4x, and then negative 3 plus 40 is plus 37 over that. So there's our final answer, okay? That should all be review for you. But I know it was tricky the first time. Some of us didn't maybe put a ton of effort into it the first time. So hopefully you get kind of another chance to learn it. And I know it's a hard section. Okay, your job over the next few days is to work on the problems in here, the practice problems. There's the answers. If you zoom in real quick, you can get them. But it's section 7.1b and section 7.2. If you don't like my video explanation, these booklets still have like my nice typed out explanations too. So you should have a lot of resources. If neither one of those works, you could always just look on YouTube for adding, subtracting rational expressions. Okay, I'll also post all my whiteboard problems on there so you can practice those. And then remember, my office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11, and then Friday evening from 8 to 9 for those of you who maybe can't do it in the morning. And then if none of those 3 times work, email me and we'll set up like another time where we can get together. For the most part, I'm sitting around the house playing Animal Crossing, so I'm pretty available most of the time right now. And you can always email me if you have a question. My office hours are going to be a Zoom classroom, Zoom meeting, whatever you want to call them. But I'll post the code to that on Google Classroom as well. So if you need help, I will probably sit on my bed and watch Netflix until somebody logs into the room, and then I'll go, oh yay, Xavier's here, or whoever. Okay, so please come see me in my Zoom room if you need help. Email me if you need help, but make sure you get those practice ones done. And then once you have them done, email me and I'll send you your little comprehension check, quiz, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. If you have any suggestions to make this better, let me know. I'm learning along with you guys. So, and that's about it. I miss you guys. Hopefully I will see some of you in the Zoom office hour classroom, whatever we're going to call it, on Tuesday. Bye.